You are sitting at the console of a massive, trembling reactor. The alarms have been flashing red for years, but instead of hitting the emergency shutoff, you are frantically polishing the dials. You're adjusting the thermostat, terrified that shutting down the core will plunge your entire world into darkness. Actually, let me try that a different way. It's not a control room. It's your kitchen table. It's a Tuesday night, and you are quietly rearranging the dishwasher while the silence in the room rings in your ears. You are doing everything you can to maintain the illusion of containment. But beneath the surface of this perfectly managed domestic life, the core is melting down, and you have been absorbing the heat for so long that you barely even notice the burns anymore. We tend to look at people who stay in deeply unhappy, toxic marriages and wonder why they don't just walk out the door. Society often quietly judges that hesitation as weakness. But what I think might be happening is something far more complicated than fear or a lack of courage. You aren't paralyzed because you are weak. You might just be trapped by the sheer, terrifying weight of the infrastructure you've built. You spent decades constructing this life. The American dream, the shared mortgage, the 401k, the holiday traditions, the carefully curated photo albums. To hit the kill switch isn't just about ending a romance that ran its course. It feels like intentionally demolishing your life's greatest architectural achievement. I stayed longer than I probably should have in my own past because I couldn't bear the thought of tearing down the walls I had spent so much time painting. There is a profound, suffocating grief in looking at a structure you poured your entire soul into, only to realize the foundation is quietly poisoning you. You look at the living room rug you picked out together, the garden you planted, and leaving feels like a betrayal of your own history. And it's rarely a constant explosion. If it were terrible every single day, leaving might actually be simple. But there are days when the control rods drop, the core cools, and the gauges read completely normal. A quiet Saturday morning, a shared joke over coffee, a momentary touch on the shoulder when passing in the hallway. Are things finally getting better? Or are you just so exhausted that a crumb feels like an absolute feast? There's something I came across recently in behavioral psychology that completely changed how I view this kind of paralysis. Research tends to suggest that unpredictable, random moments of warmth, what is often called intermittent reinforcement, can create a chemical bond in our brains that is incredibly difficult to break. It acts like a deadly anesthetic. When you are starving for connection, a sudden, unexpected drop of kindness triggers a profound sense of relief. It tricks the mind into canceling the evacuation plan, quietly resetting your baseline for the next inevitable spike in coldness. You start living for those tiny weather windows of peace, convincing yourself that the brief moments of calm are the reality, and the weeks of toxic neglect are just a phase. It is a cycle that slowly erodes your trust in your own perception. But even when you manage to see the cycle clearly, the barrier to leaving remains highly practical. The reactor is hardwired into your survival grid. The systemic design of modern life, shared health insurance, dual-income reliance, the exorbitant, terrifying cost of legal fees, acts as the thick power lines holding you in place. The system often feels rigged so that initiating a shutdown guarantees a catastrophic, localized blackout. You might not be staying out of love, or even out of hope. You might be staying because the logistical cost of survival outside the containment zone seems mathematically impossible. The sheer bureaucratic terror of untangling two lives that have grown together like vines around a fence can make staying feel like the only responsible choice. And then it's just Wednesday, and someone still has to buy groceries and pretend everything is fine. It's a Thursday evening, late afternoon. You're sitting in the driveway in your car. The engine is off. You scroll through your phone, checking emails you don't even care about, intentionally delaying the moment you have to open the front door. There's a dull, tight ache right behind your ribs, a heavy sensation of bracing yourself for an environment that demands everything and offers very little in return. You don't name the feeling. You just lock the car, grab your bag, take a deep breath, and walk inside. I don't know if this is exactly right, but the more I look at it, the more I realize that the ultimate rationalization we use to stay isn't about finances or logistics at all. It's about the children. We believe that enduring a loveless marriage is a noble sacrifice to protect them from the trauma of a broken home. But what if the exact opposite is happening? What I keep returning to is the concept of background radiation. When you stay in a toxic environment, the children aren't safe in the control room just because the physical walls are intact. They might be absorbing chronic, invisible emotional radiation every single day. The profound realization isn't just that the environment is hurting you. It's that by enduring emotional hypothermia, you might be calibrating your children's baseline to accept toxicity as normal. They feel the tension in the hallway. They notice the way you shrink yourself to avoid conflict. We think we are shielding them from pain, but we might be teaching them that love looks like two people staring at their phones in silence. We might be modeling that marriage is a place where you slowly, quietly disappear. It's a heavy thing to realize over a bowl of cereal on a Sunday morning. Leaving a situation like this is rarely about finding a sudden burst of fearless inspiration. It is a brutal, necessary extraction. There is no toxic positivity here to offer you. The process of executing the emergency shutdown, the SCRAM protocol, will likely bring a harsh logistical winter. It will be expensive, exhausting, and will challenge every coping mechanism you have. But the paralysis you feel isn't a life sentence. It is a state built by circumstances and often maintained by habit. You don't have to have the entire evacuation plan mapped out today. You don't have to pack a bag tomorrow morning. But you can start by being honest with yourself about the air you are breathing. You can stop polishing the dials on a machine that is fundamentally broken. Abandoning the irradiated zone might be the only path to breathing clean air and building a sustainable life. If there is someone you know who is sitting in their car right now, staring at the steering wheel, trying to find the energy to go inside, send this to them without explanation. They'll know. You will probably wake up tomorrow and do the exact same routine you did today. But what happens when the quiet in the house becomes too loud to ignore? The hardest part isn't walking out the door. It's realizing you already left years ago.